Hey.
muted.
No, it's okay. That's fine. Sorry to keep you waiting.
No, it's okay.
How are you doing?
I am struggling with Streamlabs and tech as usual because every Merrick stream is just me being very confused for the first 20 minutes. But apart from that, everything is going great.
I've been there. It's okay.
I'm there literally every stream. I got my second round of vax yesterday, so my arm feels like it's gonna fall off, but I am glad that I am no longer a potential COVID vector. So yeah, things are going super good.
I'm so jealous. Like, I have to wait 3.5 months for my next shot in Canada.
Oh
So,
no! Wait,
yeah.
why?
I don't know. In Canada, I guess the way they prioritize it, because we're doing so bad with getting vaccines, because we have no factories producing vaccines here. So what they've done is they've just decided to give everyone like their first shot and then make them wait like 4 months for their second, just as a way to reduce like the likelihood of spreading it, because I think it does like reduce it like 60% or something.
Oh, man, I was worried. So it took I think a month in between. Oh, I took like a month and 3 days in between mine, and I was super worried that I would it would be too much time. I didn't realize that you could wait 3-4 months in between doses. Are you doing Pfizer?
Yeah, I got Pfizer.
Okay.
It's the best one, right? Like, that's what I heard.
I have no idea. Sounds
the coolest.
Yeah, all I've seen is that Pfizer is the one that gives you the fat ass, and doesn't give you potential blood clots. So that's super cool with me.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I'm down for not having
butt. Concerned about.
Wait, what do you mean fat ass? Did you say fat ass?
Yeah, well, so I'm saying that's what I'm concerned about. Not killing people and having a big juicy fat ass, and that's what I hear Pfizer does. So
Pfizer gives you big asses? Like, is there some truth to that?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I think maybe I did that.
I got kind of excited because my butt is like, I feel like my butt was considered very sexy in like the 90s, but in like 2021 it's like it's just not big enough, you know? So that would be good if Pfizer made my butt bigger. Like,
there are some easy fixes to that, and if you would like to hear about any of them, I can definitely DM you later. Like, there's some really simple like leg lift stuffs that you can do, and like step back lunges. Yeah, I got really into the gym for a while, and I could definitely like talk you through some of that. If you're serious about getting a big butt, I'm here for you.
I'm down to get a big butt, you know?
Okay.
Like, I'm down. I always want to look better. I'm into aesthetics. Yeah. So that would be super cool. And eventually I'm going to reveal my appearance. Maybe, I don't know, maybe at like a TwitchCon or something like that. So, you know, hopefully by that point I look nice. And it'll be a little better.
You look exactly like your icon. That's just in my headcanon. That's what
I do. I look exactly like my character. So actually someone made like a version, like a realistic version of how I look. And it was so close. It was creepy. Yeah, it's super, super strange. So Merrick, like,
hold on.
Oh, sure.
Can I ask you one more question about the VTuber stuff?
Yes. Yeah.
Why did you choose to do the VTuber stuff versus show what you look like?
Honestly, it was more so the thing that kept me from streaming for the longest time, because I actually streamed like 6 years ago. And I was briefly very successful, and I quit because I got really overwhelmed and I got like a stalker. I had like Shroud like raided into me once, and it just made me blow up like all of a sudden.
Who is Shroud? I'm sorry.
Shroud's like this really big streamer, like doing like FPSs and stuff. But like suddenly like 30,000 people were watching me. Like it's like XQC numbers, like really, really intense. Yeah.
Wait, did they randomly pick you?
Yeah. I think he raided into me to like, at the time I had my camera on and stuff, and he raided into me to ask me out on like a date, which is like, yeah, it's like a 2004 thing. I don't think that he would get away with doing that shit now. But yeah, I suddenly had 30,000 people being like, hey, like Shroud wants you to go on a date with him, right? Something like that.
Oh my god, that's so much pressure. That's so scary. I would be so nervous.
Yeah, like I was like really grateful, and Shroud was like actually like really nice behind closed doors too. Like afterwards he's like, no, don't worry, like I mean I'm like I was just wanted to support a smaller streamer or whatever, but yeah, it was definitely a lot, and that was like really, really overwhelming.
Oh, wait, so hold on. You're saying that this was like a thing that people did in 2004, or that this
Yeah.
actually happened in the year 2004?
Both. It actually happened in the year, I think no, not 2004, 2014. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I was 10 in 2004. Yeah. You sound so young.
I was like, wrong decade.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
Yeah, 2014. No, my chat's like, what? 2004. Yeah, no, this was 2014. I don't know why I was thinking like that. And it feels so long ago. That's why. But anyways, like, so I got really big, like, really quickly, and it was like from like 10 viewers to suddenly like thousands of people watching me. It was very overwhelming, and I couldn't handle it, so I quit streaming. And I remember I ended up getting like a stalker that literally found my apartment. Like, they doxed me based on like the background of my building, because at the time I lived in like a kind of, not like a skyscraper, but a very tall building, and it kind of, I guess, gave away the city I was in and all that stuff.
Oh God.
And yeah, so like they actually ended up finding the building I was in. It was like super creepy and weird. And I told myself, it was then that I started valuing privacy. Like, privacy is one of those things that we all have and we all value until we lose it. And like, I'm sure you know a lot about that, right? And
so it's actually interesting that you say this, because something really, really similar happened to me. It wasn't like one particular moment, but when I got on Twitter in April, I like didn't really use it until August, and then in August I had 100 followers, and when No Comrades Under 1K happened, like 4 weeks later, I had 30,000 followers.
Yeah, so in a way, the same thing happened to you.
Yeah,
like,
it was a very similar experience.
Yeah, and I actually think that's the worst thing to happen to someone, because you need to slowly grow organically so you can like learn slowly and make adjustments as you start getting used to losing your privacy. But when something like that happens, it's like, it feels like a nuke's being dropped on you. Like, that's just completely taking your privacy and you're not prepared.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is I totally wasn't prepared. So like, I look at a lot of the like blunders that I've made online that I look back and I can go, okay, did I necessarily do something immoral? No. But was it a blunder? Yes. And I look back on it and I go, man, I wish that I had been on Twitter like the amount of time I've been on Twitter now when that happened, because I would have understood like kind of how Twitter has its own like microcosms of social scenes, and things are run very differently on Twitter, like as far as socializing goes, than they are on say like Twitch, like streaming, or on Facebook, or I mean, Instagram doesn't really have communities, but like I had no idea how people would react to things, and so yeah, I definitely shared a lot more information than I should have, and that has definitely come back to bite me in the ass. And yeah, I can imagine how incredibly overwhelming that would be for you. And I totally understand you just going, you know what? I can't do this. I'm done. I'm quitting. Like, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like, and it was a big decision for me because I like was suddenly earning all this money too. And at the time, like, people didn't normally subscribe a lot on Twitch. It was like a lot of donos. So sometimes I would be earning a lot of money, but it was like, there's no amount of money that can make this worth it. Like, your privacy, like, is like, it was just, when your safety is like at risk, it's really, really, really scary. So yeah, I ended up quitting, and I always told myself I would never get into streaming again. And people have always told me, like, you've got to stream, like, you're just like, you're right for it, all of that stuff. And so what ended up happening was like, I decided, when I found out that like I could just stream without a camera on, and that like I wouldn't have to use, I guess, like I don't know, the other stuff that I thought was so important, like, you know, I don't know, like the way I looked or being a female or any of that stuff, to be streaming like that. I was like, wow, that would be crazy. So but that's the only way that I would stream. So yeah, so I went and invested in like a VTube kind of whole thing. And also, like, I'd already debated Nazis. I'd kind of developed the name Eris, it means like goddess of discord. And that was kind of given to me like when I was debating Nazis all the time on Discord. So a lot of them also like really, really hated me. Like, they found a picture of me and they were like spreading it around and calling me like flat face because I'm part Asian, and stuff. And I was just, yeah, I just did not want to give them ammo to be able to make memes of me and all of that stuff, and to find out who I was. Especially, I work on a campus, and like them finding like someone finding me on campus and coming up to me, that's like my worst nightmare. So so I just decided to be super, super private, and yeah, it's surprisingly worked out.
You know, it's interesting because like I think that there's probably a lot of abuse that doesn't get sent your way now. Like people can't make fun of your appearance, they can't body shame you, and they can't say like, oh, you only have your following because you're this or because you're that, or like can't make proclamations about how they, you know, like I think there's another thing is like when people will say positive things about me online, especially if it's men, like one of the big things that people do is they go, oh, you're just a fucking simp. And it's like, well, if you don't know what she looks like, then it's not really simping, it's just someone who agrees with that person. So there's like this whole
people still call my followers simps, you know, which I think is like really gross, but because I think that they're all like the coolest, smartest people in the world, obviously. But yeah, like that it's this weird like toxic kind of attitude, and I used to and I mean, you know, this as a woman, like I used to have this intense insecurity that like anything I achieved or anything like was because of how I looked or being like a young female or something, and it's been kind of like freeing for me to just know like, wow, like I accomplished something and it had nothing to do with those factors. But I think it's really sad that that's what I had to do to feel like that. And like, I think that's gross, right? Like, you know, women shouldn't have to like completely hide their appearance, to feel like, you know, they have something worthy to give. That's not just, you know, I don't know, like based on like shallow factors or something. But yeah, I'm sure like, you know a lot about that, because of the way people have treated you and all that stuff.
I know that I have things to give. What's frustrating for me, and I know that because like I've put in the work to consider why I believe the things that I believe. I've done a good bit of reading about things that I'm interested in. I've done the work where I talk to people one-on-one, and I think that I have proven to myself, and I know who I am, and I know my intellectual capabilities. I know that I can be charismatic when I want to be charismatic, but it can be really frustrating that you even feel like you're in a position where you have to suss that out. And it can also be really, really frustrating when you see all of the things that you have to contribute, that you know for a fact you have to contribute, sort of hand-waved and dismissed, and just sort of attributed away to exclusively your appearance, which can be really frustrating because it's like, okay, that's fine that's your initial reaction. Why don't you actually listen to what I have to say? Why don't you listen to a stream of mine? Why don't you have a conversation with me? Like it's really, really sexist, and it's really demeaning to hand wave away every bit of me because you feel that I in some way am conventionally attractive, especially when you are on the other hand dealing with like body image issues. It can be really difficult.
And you feel like insecure talking about that because you feel like I get nervous talking about that because I know that it's going to make me seem like really like egocentric or obsessed with myself, or like, you know, like, oh, so you think you're like hot shit or whatever. But I really feel like any young female kind of experiences this. And my middle name, like my viewers can quote me on this right now, like my middle name is like internalized misogyny. Like I've internalized so much like sexist, misogynistic stuff that's like in my head, that's like relating to appearance and all this stuff that I'm always working through, and I don't know how much I can completely get rid of it because it's like being so implanted in my brain from society. Like I had a briefly like religious upbringing as well, and that really impacted, I guess, like how I view like for example, I have like pretty large chest. It's always been something that like men found the most attractive about me was like my chest, and I've never once, unless I'm in like a bikini or something, I've never once like shown cleavage ever, and with my chest that's hard to do. Like I have to really cover that up, but the reason is because I've like totally internalized this idea that if I'm showing cleavage, it's like I'm telling all the men around me that I'm stupid, or that I'm like low class, or that I'm worth nothing, and all of that stuff. And it's such a sexist idea, and I know it's totally bullshit, but it's like I just can't get over it. Have you ever struggled with any of those ideas, like as you've been as you've like got into the work that you do?
I do think it is interesting that you brought up this internalized misogyny, and you mentioned that because that was one of the things that I was going to say to you as well, and I didn't want to be offensive, but even you saying, oh, if I talk about my appearance or if I feel good about my appearance, I feel almost narcissistic or egocentric. Like that is also internalized misogyny. Like that's the idea.
That's interesting.
That's the idea that if you as a woman are comfortable with your appearance, if you as a woman understand that you are attractive, that's not a desirable quality, and that's a problem that you have. So this is something that I deal with a lot, and this is one of the reasons why people are really off-put by me, I think, is because I am openly very like, yes, I have features that are conventionally attractive, and I don't apologize for that. And I'm not like sitting here going, oh my God, I'm the hottest person in the world. And I'm not sitting here going, oh my God, it's so important that I look like this. But I am like, no, I understand that to a lot of people I look good. And that's okay. It's okay that I know that. That's not a problem.
Well, also, isn't that like part of your job? And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm so ignorant and uneducated about like sex work and stuff.
That's
So I'm
okay.
probably going to say like the most stupid, like vile shit. And feel free to correct me. But yeah, isn't that also like part of your job, right? To look like aesthetically pleasing?
Well, yes, that is a large component of my job. And so that's why I think it can be really frustrating. It can be really frustrating when people get upset with me for that, because at the end of the day, I am still selling a fantasy. But yeah, I hate that it's unfortunate that that's something that you feel about yourself, because I think that you should be able to look in the mirror and go, yeah, I look great, and just know that you look great and feel totally comfortable feeling that about yourself, because you have one body and you have one life. And it's really, really good, and you're going to benefit from feeling good about the body that you're in, and feeling confident and comfortable in it. And then, as far as the other part you asked me of, do I feel like I present a certain way? I feel like I, very much go out of my way. I mean, I even label myself a bimbo, I very much go out of my way to lean into this idea of being very sexual. I like call myself mommy. Like I do all of these things on purpose. And I very much go out of my way to lean into this idea of being sexually desirable. But I also think that just the person that I am and the other traits that I have are so strong that they shine through a lot of that. And I don't think people look at me or look at my online presence online and go, this is someone who doesn't think about things, or who is only interested in things on a surface level, or who isn't able to have a conversation. So it's not really something I worry about. And I think that that's because I go so out of my way to try and show the other parts of myself, because I want to set an example. You can be sexual. You can sexualize yourself. You can be like, yeah, I'm a dumb mommy cum slut, but I am also, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I am also someone who makes it a point to care for others. I'm also someone who wants to learn a lot about subjects. I'm also someone who is able to comprehend, math and science concepts. And I'm also someone who is able to think deeply about a subject, because these things are not at odds, and they are not mutually exclusive. And I feel like so often they are. And so it's really, really, really important, I think, that if I am going to show this side of myself of being like, look at this very small bikini I'm wearing, that I also make it a point to go, hey, I'm also a well-rounded person attached to these beautiful mommy milkers inside of this small bikini. So it's something I'm really conscientious of.
I hate the term milkers. I don't know why.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
it's so
I saw people say it in chat, and it always weirds me out. It just feels like, ew.
Yeah, well, that's part of the meme, right? It's just that it's really gross and makes people uncomfortable. So just saying it.
I'm glad that's the thing, because I thought I was kind of a weirdo. Are you able to go on camera, by the way? I forgot to mention that in the beginning. It's okay if not.
Oh, am I not on camera right now?
No.
Sorry, I'm so dumb.
That's okay.
Okay.
There you go. Great.
Hello.
Hello.
I spent all this time talking about being cute, and now you guys are gonna see that I look like this. I'm so sorry. I built myself up. I'm very sorry if I disappoint.
No, you look great. I love the hair like thing that you're wearing.
Thank
like,
you. Thank you.
It looks like one of those things you can get at like Etsy.
Yeah, I bought a bunch of jewelry from Etsy. Oh, you know what's funny? Speaking of this side of my head, which might be a weird segue, but you know how you mentioned your name is Eris, the goddess of chaos?
Yeah.
I actually have, I had this side of my head shaved for a very, very long time. And I actually have the apple of discord tattooed right above my ear on this side. And it says "to the fairest" in Greek on it. Because I was so
I love that.
Eris.
Yeah. No, that's cool as fuck. I actually, there's another girl named Eris. She's like a mod in Dusty's community and sometimes streams and stuff. Her name's Eris Ann. And it's really weird because she like also, I think she's part Asian, and so she looks a lot like me, and we have a very similar voice. We're both called Eris.
No.
And like, and so like, she's like my better twin, and it freaks me out sometimes. All right, so I kind of like, we can get started, I guess, officially with the interview.
Have we been streaming, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay,
cool.
Sorry.
I'm the most disorganized interviewer ever.
No, it's okay. I'm an ADHD queen. I understand.
But just as a preface to my viewers, we will be getting into sex, right? And some pretty naughty subjects. So if you are underage, it's not a good idea to watch this, all right?
Minors?
Yeah.
Out.
Yeah, not a good idea. And if you're disturbed by sex stuff, probably not a good idea to watch this. Though you should probably just mute the tab so I still get your viewer, okay? But anyway, so, okay, so can we start, before we get into the sex stuff, let's start with, like, I think the moment I met you, I didn't understand how anyone could dislike you because you have like a charm factor, like with the way you speak. And you just come off like very genuine, and you just come off charming. Like I was talking about social geniuses earlier in chat, and you definitely have like that vibe. But somehow, apparently, all of Twitter hates you. That you've said that regularly, right? So, like, can you tell me how that started and how that happened?
Oh, by the way, can you hear my dachshund in the background?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I'm so sorry. Let me do something about that real quick, because if I don't deal with this now, she is going to bark the entire time.
No, that's totally fine. Go for it.
Okay. I will be right back.
Sure. Marcus, thank you so much for those gift subs. Thank you so much for those gift subs. Really appreciate that, Marcus. But literally, are you on 18 plus questions? Thank you, Marcus. That's really, really cool. I'm 100% sure. Do you guys want to see the version? Should I do the Eris face reveal? Like right now? Or should I do it later? She has really pretty eyes. Yeah, she definitely has like I think like she has like a Lana Del Rey look, but she looks like softer, which I find is much prettier. You want me to do the face reveal right now, or should I wait till after the interview? You guys want to right now? Yeah, if face reveal after, yeah, I might wait. Look at the kitty on camera. It's cute. I love black cats. Show us the doggo. Do it both times. Oh, was there a ceasefire that was just agreed to, Revolt? Now costs money, guys. Yeah, I'll do it now if like, I don't know. If like you pay me like $100. Actually, I don't want to offer that because if Merrick shows up, then it's like, it's kind of rude, so. Wait, does she have like a chair with like a drink section in it? That's so cool. I'm so jealous. Wow, a ceasefire was agreed to. Holy shit. I'm gonna change my name to that.
We're just gonna be in here for just a little bit. Did you just say a ceasefire was agreed to?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, cool. we'll look into that later.
I'm very happy, though
Super.
it's way too late, but still.
Well, yeah.
Take the win that you can get.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So yes. Well, first I should probably introduce myself.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yes. So I am Merrick DeVille. And I am a lefty sex worker who talks about politics a lot on Twitter. I do have a YouTube channel, I do have a Twitch, but that's like, those are kind of, I don't know. My main platform was Twitter. I didn't think of myself as a content creator at all when I was first online. And I got big on Twitter in last fall, in August. Like I said, I had 100 followers, and then I ended up having 30,000, which like felt like overnight, but it was like over the course of 4 or 5 weeks.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, and I'd never been active on Twitter before, so it was kind of like being thrown to the wolves a little bit. I got big because I was posing with guns. So when I first found leftism, I was introduced through, I don't know, are you familiar with Beau of the Fifth Column?
No.
Okay. So Beau of the Fifth Column is, he's a large lefty creator. He is an anarchist. And there's currently another Twitter shitstorm going. Oh, I don't need to see that. Sorry, my chat's talking to me. So I got big through Beau of the Fifth Column because he really, I got big through Beau. What am I saying? I was introduced to leftism through Beau, and he actually encouraged me to start my YouTube channel. He's a really, really cool guy. So he introduced me to anarchism, and then I met Re-Education, started getting into that content, and then I started getting into like anarchist Twitter and meeting people through there. Re-Education is run by a very, very, very lovely gentleman by the name of Aaron. So I would recommend checking out both of those creators' content. But as of lately, my politics have kind of shifted. I'm more of like a market socialist now. So think like Vosh, SDL, that sort of thing. But so I got really big on lefty Twitter, and I just thought I could be myself. So I was like bubbly and sexual, and I was talking about politics and posing with guns. And a lot of people really hated that. Really, 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 really hated that. There's a lot of people that said that I was a Fed, a lot of people that said that I was a grifter, because I also have an OnlyFans. And I didn't really plug my OnlyFans very much at first, but I would post sexy pictures, and I would talk about political stuff, and I would like I would do like a girlfriend, like a communist girlfriend bit or an anarchist girlfriend bit, and I just thought it was cute. Like I thought
it's pretty unique, right? Because usually the area of politics and sex is kind of very separate in a lot of people's minds. So that's probably what gave you a lot of attention, but simultaneously gives you a lot of hate too. Yeah,
well, I mean, it was posing with guns, and like I went to a protest in Louisville. I went to a protest at an ICE facility in Georgia, where they were performing the unwanted hysterectomies on immigrant women who were being detained in the ICE facility. So I went to a protest there. Yeah. It's LaSalle Corrections, if you guys want to look that up. That is who owns the facilities, and that's where that was happening. So I went to a protest there with like a pretty big name anti-fascist account, and then I went to Louisville because right on that same trip, and I got really big from doing these things because it was very public. And I went to Louisville because they were handing down the charges for Breonna Taylor's killers. Of course, it ended up being that they were only charged for property destruction, which is really, really, really wrong and unfortunate. But so I was in Louisville, right? So there were a lot of eyeballs on that situation. A lot of people were very upset that I went to Louisville. A lot of people were very upset that I tweeted a sexy photo of myself after I left the ICE facility in Georgia. Like hours and hours and hours later, when I was in a completely different city in Georgia, I tweeted like, sorry Fash, I only fuck leftists, with like a sexy photo of myself, because at the ICE facility, we had run into these like chuds with guns, who one of them ended up like, I argued with him and he was like, well, you're hot though. Like, I think in an attempt to like demean me. But it was just stupid and funny, and we caught it on camera. So like afterwards, I ended up tweeting like, sorry Fash, I only fuck leftists. And a lot of people got really, really, really mad about that. And basically it came down to people just saying that I was being insensitive and saying that I was like making everything about me. And then people said that this was like in August, so people said that I was spreading COVID, even though I had immunity at the time because I had already had it within a 6 months period prior. Yeah. And, I was masking and traveling responsibly. And then people said that I was making everything about me.
So they felt like you were kind of taking advantage of a shitty situation to like advertise like your OnlyFans or your sex work.
I mean, I wasn't plugging my OnlyFans or my sex work at all. The way I saw it was that fascists and right-wingers, as much as they want to shit on leftists for doing identity politics, are actually obsessed with identity. Like, they're the ones who are completely fucking obsessed with it.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. And so I was like, you know what would be funny? They fucking hate people like me. I'm a race traitor. I'm a degenerate. I'm a sex worker. Like, I'm trash in their eyes. And so I was like, it's really good propaganda to publicly embarrass them. And I had just tweeted the video that had gone viral of me embarrassing that guy. And so I was like, taunting fascists in public, probably a pretty good thing to do. And so, it's like, I think there's certain propaganda that really works, and weaponizing your sexuality, I thought, is something that I can do. But
it just feels like, and I know, like, when you see something that's awful, right? And you want to do something about it, like, it's just natural to use whatever tools that you have at your disposal to try to bring attention to it or to try to do something. And so for you, that's exactly what you were doing. But because, sex is obviously a more sensitive subject with people, they didn't see it that way, I guess.
Yeah. I've been tweeting about the facility. Like, I've been talking about it. We've been sharing what was happening there. But I guess that wasn't good enough, or got wiped away because I tweeted. And then a very, very, very large ML said that I had taken those photos at the protest, that I'd left the protest, the ICE facility, to go take those photos, which is, of course, not true. There wasn't even a place with a mirror. We're literally like in the woods and they weren't letting us. We had to go pee in the woods. Like, it physically would not have been possible. But so, that got out. That was never corrected. There's a lot of misinformation. And then later in Louisville, I was a little bit inconsiderate of people's personal space, I suppose. And that same ML account who claimed that
ML is Marxist-Leninist, for those who don't know.
Yes.
Or like otherwise often known as tankies as well.
So that same girl was brought down to the hotel room that I was providing for us for that trip. And against my wishes, she was brought down there and stayed with us. And I was pretty stupid, and I kissed somebody in that hotel room. So she slept in another bed with someone else, and then I slept in my bed with a guy who I had a really strong connection with, and I kissed him while she was pretending to be asleep. I thought she was asleep and tried to be quiet about it, but I guess she heard. And so I guess a few weeks later, she went to Twitter and said that I had sexually harassed her by doing that. She said that I had sex very loudly in a bed next to her, and that I sexually harassed her.
Wait, I must be super ignorant, right? But like, wait, so kissing someone in front of someone else is sexual harassment?
I guess you could consider it that if they didn't.
Literally every high school party I've ever gone to, like, I've been sexually harassed then by that definition.
Well, I want to try to not be offensive to her, and I want to try to sort of steel man her position, but she went on Twitter and she claimed that she had told me about some sort of sexual PTSD that she had, which I We never talked about anything like that. I didn't know anything about her personal sexual history. I certainly would never try to trigger anyone's PTSD on purpose. And then she claimed that I like refused to cut my fingernails and put people in danger. And she claimed that I was pretending to be a fake medic when I wasn't, even though like I was really, really, really upfront when we were in Louisville, that the reason that I was there was to shadow someone who actually was a medic.
Wait, what is this about your fingernails?
Oh, I had acrylic fingernails at the time because I had gotten them like 4 weeks prior.
Okay.
And whenever I made the trip, I thought we were only going to Georgia. I thought we were just going to the ICE facility protest. While we were at the ICE facility, it was then decided that I would go to Louisville with the person I was already with. So there wasn't a way to like take them off. We're just driving through like the backwoods from Georgia to Louisville. So there's not like a nail salon we could stop at. And then it wasn't mentioned to me prior. So then when we got there, the city was shut down because the governor had declared a state of emergency. So there like wasn't a nail salon I could go to get them soaked off. And if I try to cut them, well, then the acrylic is just going to end up jagged, which is going to be much more likely to hurt someone than like the rounded, or the coffin tip or whatever. So basically I was like, hey, what can I do about this? I'm really sorry. And the person I was with was the medic that I was with was like, just wear 2 things of gloves, wear 3 things of gloves, whatever, you'll be fine. It's like, okay, cool. But later on
I didn't even know you were not supposed to have like long fingernails with these things.
Well, I mean,
it makes sense, but I didn't even know about that.
Of hurting someone. But so then later on Twitter, this became, I refused to cut my nails, even though I was asked, and I put people's lives in danger because I valued my fingernails over people living or dying. And then she said that I put them in danger because I didn't listen to her and I wasn't within her line of sight the whole time. This is a 21-year-old that I had just met, mind you. And so,
this feels like concern trolling. I know like you're probably very careful with your words because I mean, you've got that angry mob and stuff, but maybe I'm super ignorant, but this just seems totally nuts to me. Like totally nuts.
Like a lot of overblown stuff.
Yeah.
But so yeah, like at one point I said in an interview when we got back that I was there to work as a medic, because the reason that I went from the ICE facility to Louisville was so that I could do hands-on medic training with that other large person that I was with, right? Mm. So to me, saying, oh yeah, I was going there to work as a medic, like that seems right. I mean, I probably should have said I was going there to work as a medic's assistant. So like looking back now, that's how I would have phrased it differently, but I didn't mean it in like a malicious way. And I certainly didn't mean it as in like trying to make it seem like I know a lot more than I do. Cause I mean, I'll be pretty upfront like about what I know and what I don't. And when we were there on the ground, I feel like I was pretty upfront about what I knew and what I didn't. And, I made very clear I needed to be with people who were more experienced. But it became this thing of like, oh, I lied and pretended I was a medic and I sexually harassed her because I had sex with someone, but she didn't look, but she heard it and she wasn't.
But you didn't actually have sex with anyone like on the bed,
no.
Right? It was just kissing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so she claimed it was sex, and then she went on to say that, she has PTSD, and I knew that, which I didn't, and then she said that she wasn't traumatized, and it wasn't really that big of a deal, but that the community needed to know that about me, that I had done that, and I had violated her boundaries, and it was like I had violated her consent. And so it just became this, like, huge shit show, because I think at the time she had like 50,000 followers. And so by the time it had run through the drama cycle, the story had become that I sexually assault people and that I'm like a sexual predator. Yeah.
This is
and
like,
that I'm a medic.
Someone should make a fucking documentary about this. Oh, this is great. Like, this is just totally nuts. To like any normal person, this is super, super weird.
It's very online and it's very high school.
Yeah.
But because of that, it's been like open season on me ever since.
Yeah. So she has 50,000 followers on Twitter.
She has like 70,000 now, I think. But yeah.
Wow, okay. So that's going to mean that she's got, I guess, like a huge amount of reach. That's like a lot of people. So suddenly this is the problem with these kinds of mediums. I mean, historically, you had to prove yourself before you had the option to reach millions of people, or thousands of people with publishing, and now anyone can basically do it, and this is like the consequence of that. That's kind of what this demonstrates to me. Like anyone like that, this 20-year-old who obviously whatever that they've gone through, and that they could just like make up something, and then boom, your life is just kind of blown up.
Well, and then I didn't help myself by being friends with Vosh afterwards.
Because they hate Vosh too.
Yeah, everyone who hates me hates Vosh.
Okay.
So basically, I ran into another controversy very quickly after that because someone asked me, I was asked a lot to publicly condemn Vosh and to like publicly distance myself from him. And I refused to do that because I think that that's really toxic. And because I don't particularly have a serious problem with Vosh. But so I kind of like, I did the bad thing where I kind of snapped on somebody because they kept spamming a clip at me of Vosh saying something pretty incendiary, which I'm pretty sure everyone knows about the clip. I mean, do you know what clip I'm talking about?
The Israel clip?
No, the tactical N-word clip.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody was.
Yeah, I'm sure Marxist-Leninists were not upset about the Israel thing, so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know that they cared about that so much, but so they were like spamming that at me, and I basically was just like, look, this was a bad thing that he did. He shouldn't have done this. And it's not okay for us to say that word. I would never say that fucking word. But this was 2 years ago. And I don't hate him, and I think that he's learned and grown and changed as a person, and I'm not going to publicly condemn him. Like, I refuse to do that. Like, I'm not going to witch trial someone 2 years after they did a bad thing that it looks like they've learned and grown from. I don't think that that's very productive. It just kind of seems like purity testing, and it's not, like, something I want to be a part of. And so, basically, like,
yeah,
it
good for you.
Well, yeah, but so this was not the correct answer. This was not what they wanted to hear.
That sounds pretty legit to me.
Huh?
That sounds, if you're telling like the truth, like that sounds pretty legit. Like to respond with those comments.
So my problem was that someone was like, well, when is it okay for white people to say it? When is it okay for white people to say it? And my initial response was, I don't know. I don't feel like that's my place. I don't feel like I should be saying that. This is making me very uncomfortable, and I don't want to continue this conversation. Now, you'll never see that screenshot floating around because nobody wanted to screenshot that to dunk on me because that doesn't make me look shitty and doesn't go for easy dunks, doesn't make for easy dunks. So basically that answer was not good enough either. And a bunch of people started being like, no, you need to say it. You need to say it because if you're not going to denounce him right now, you need to say it. And I was like,
what the fuck?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, movies? Academia?
But aren't you're denouncing the act, right? You just felt like he had grown and changed.
Yeah, exactly. And especially because I was like, look, it's not okay that he did it. This is not something I support. This is not a word.
Love rehabilitative justice. Like,
so my problem is that I know now that you don't reply to people on Twitter. I know now that like you don't get in prolonged arguments with people on Twitter, but I didn't know that then. And so I was like, okay, well, we can just talk through this then. Like, everybody has good intentions. They just want to talk about like these ideas. And that's not how Twitter works.
Your first mistake, young one.
And so I basically was just like, I didn't want to get bogged down in like, is it okay to say it in academia? Is it okay to say it if you were white and you were raised by a black family and they don't care if you say it? Like, it's just such an uncomfortable topic that I was like, I really don't want to get into this too much. Like, so I was like, I just keep it vague. I don't want to argue about this. And I was like, look, I don't know. It would have to be a situation where there was no malice. Like, I don't know that it's my place to give specifics. Now, the specifics that I can think of are the three things that I said to you. Like, but academia is even, there's even like there's not a consensus on that either. Like I see some people say that's okay. I see some people okay. So, I mean, you can see where I was like hesitant to like give specifics, right? Because I just didn't want to like, oh, hey, do I have a mod in Twitch chat? if you can get Insidious Sam G out, because they're just spamming actual Nazi edited clips, that would be cool. Anyway, so basically, it's such a messy conversation that I don't feel like I have enough. I don't feel like it's my place to get into, but I was continually pressed on it, and I felt really uncomfortable. And I felt like if I didn't answer, that would be seen as really bad. But now I know to just not engage. But so I made the mistake of being like, I don't know, like it would have to be like non-malicious. And so people screenshotted that into oblivion and said that that's me advocating for all white people to say the N-word all the time because it's Twitter. And of course that's what they do, even though that's nowhere close to my opinion. And then someone posted a clip of Vosh being like, I say it all the time in private. Now, this is also a take that Destiny had. So I was like, listen, I don't know if this is Vosh saying this about himself or if this is Vosh saying this about Destiny. So someone was like, well, this is racism. And I was like, well, listen, the racism is going to depend on the context here because I don't know what's actually being said right now. But of course, that was clipped on its own too. So then those two things circulate all the time. And so now people say that I am anti-Black and I hate Black people. And I think it's, I don't necessarily want to say all the things people say because they'll literally people obsessively hate watch my stream. So they'll actually clip it here that I'm saying it now, and they'll throw it into clips together to try to make it seem like that's my opinion. But people said a lot of very, very, very not nice things about me, and then it came out that, it came around to being this like really dramatic, horrible, negative picture that was painted of me, when really my whole thing was just like, I don't know, it wasn't cool, I wouldn't do it, but I don't hate the guy forever.
I just don't understand this idea of like leftists are supposed to be against, like I'm pretty I guess a right wing, I guess I don't even know if that's the right way to put it, but I believe in like retributive justice as well, which is very not left wing, but it seems like a lot of Twitter agrees with me on that shit. The fact it seems it's very, very strange because I thought they're all about being like rehabilitative justice and letting people change and move on. And I mean Vosh has said some things that I consider pretty vile in the past. I think Vosh acknowledges that he's said things that are vile in the past. And when I interviewed him, he was like, he seemed, unless he's like a superstar actor, like he seemed very genuine when he voiced that, and he was willing to learn, which is like more than most online content creators do. So it's like you can like someone and believe in the ability for them to change and grow and move on, and still not like the actions that they did that were bad.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I feel like this is a really reasonable take to make, and I don't think that that's saying anything crazy. But it has earned me a crazy wild reputation for being like, a virulent bigot, I guess. But that was essentially my take too, was that like, it's not good that he's done these problematic things, but that doesn't mean that we throw him away as a person, or we have to like try and get him kicked off his platform, because I think he does a lot more good than bad. And I also think that because he has the platform he has, he's not going away anytime soon. What we should be trying to do is trying to like continue to have, positive associations, or positive people for him to associate with, and like good people that can continue to be a good influence on him, and not like push him out to these far extremes where he doesn't have like any sort of support system or like leftist friends. Like I don't think that that's right at all. And I've always been someone who believes in retributive justice is I'm not huge on. I really do think that we can work with people and they can learn and they can grow. And sometimes people say and do stupid stuff. And, sometimes they dig in because they get nervous or defensive, and that's okay. We give
Merrick,
people
I want bad people to be punished. Okay. It makes me feel better. So I just feel like I'm the only one who's honest about that. Like so many, I think it's totally fine to have like, to believe in, to believe in like rehabilitative justice. I always think that there is a total voice. I think it's important to have like a voice for hippies in the discussion, or like that kind of hippie-like attitude. I think it's important, and it keeps us grounded and it keeps us from becoming evil. But I don't know, like it definitely weirds me out that that like, I don't know, so many lefties actually do like retribution. They love it, right? I mean, just look at the way they want the police to be treated after they kill black people. Like, everyone wants retribution. And like, I bet you if they could give I shouldn't say everyone, right? Because obviously a bunch of people don't. But I would say like the majority of human beings like want retribution. It's like, it's a bit of like what's the word I'm looking for? But it's like it's an emotional stance like that we all have, like just like naturally.
Sure, but yeah. I think that it's really good to. Oh no, I think my stream just dropped. Am I still connected to you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. For whatever reason, my stream dropped. But yeah, I think it's good to acknowledge that we hold those feelings, and to. It's good that we acknowledge those feelings, because you're right. And I think you said something where you said, I feel like everyone feels this way, but only I'm the one who will admit it.
Yeah.
I don't think you're wrong. I think a lot of people who claim that they want rehabilitative justice actually do want retribution, and they do want to see consequences, and they feel anger towards people. And I understand that, because, I'm only human, and when people hurt me, I feel anger. And I feel that I want them to, get theirs for what they did to me. But
yeah,
I think a part of like growing and being a better, bigger person is understanding that we have these thoughts and these feelings, but that doesn't make them right. And that just because it's a natural emotional response doesn't mean that it's something that we should lean into or that we should consider to be good, right? Because we are better and bigger than our base impulses.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes us human, and not necessarily just animals, right? That's one of the big things that separates us.
Yeah, and I respect that, because I think you're really consistent with it. And I do think it's a totally like viable thing. I definitely think it's like more civilized, right? And it's very hard for me to argue it, like, I guess logically, like the concept of justice and the concept of why the idea of, I don't know, like someone who sexually abuses a child or something, the idea of something bad happening to them afterwards, it makes me feel nice, right? Like, it just does. And it's very hard, to argue that like in logic or anything. And if I do try to argue it, it's going to just be, focused on other things like preventative measures and all of that stuff. So it's not even going to be like, yeah, justice, it's like this weird thing that is very just like hard to describe.
I think another way to think about it that might be helpful is another way to think about it that might be helpful is considering that you want less bad things to happen in the world, right? Like you want there to be less pain, less suffering, is my audio coming out wrong for you?
No, it's great.
Oh, okay. So you want there to be more bad things and less bad things in the world, right? If we're going to be really reductive about it, right?
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, you're going to have to do some full therapy with me sometime about this shit. Because I've got some deep-seated issues.
So stay with me on this train of thought, though. So our behavior creates cycles, right? So a lot of people who are abusers and a lot of people who hurt other people do it because they themselves were hurt. And this is like a really, really hard thing to come to terms with. And this has been something that I've had to come to terms with people who have hurt me in my personal life. This is something that I've had to come to terms with when I'm thinking about how do I think the criminal justice system should be run. This is something I've had to come to terms with in like the pretty extreme harassment that I get online. I know that the people who are the most hateful to me, who don't look into anything, who are just mad that I exist and everything I do is wrong, I know that these people are really hurt. And I know that somebody did awful things to them, right? So when it comes to restorative versus rehabilitative justice, the way I see it is in terms of breaking the cycle. Because it is a cycle. Like a lot of pain and suffering is you reliving trauma that you've had and inflicting it on other people. So the way that we make this world a kinder, better place is we start by teaching people better ways to handle their own emotions and better ways to deal with the manner in which they are broken, right? So, oh gosh, hold on. My stream keeps dying.
That's so weird. Like for me, it's working like super good.
I think it's just because I'm trying to have Discord, Streamlabs, and Stardew Valley open.
Okay.
Yeah, that can be difficult. But yeah, so the way I see it is that it's almost like the criminal justice system and the prison system, right? Like, you know that our rate of recidivism for the prison system here in the United States is like 70%, I think. And now I'm reading the new Jim Crow right now, so that stat might be outdated, but a lot of people who go to prison just learn, they just get abused in prison, and then they just learn ways to be better criminals, right? And it's the same with drug addicts. Like if you punish a drug addict over and over and over again, you create more harm in their life in more ways and more reasons why they want to use that drug. So I think it's the same with dealing with, this idea of justice. Do we want to break cycles or do we want to perpetuate them? And I think that I don't want to perpetuate them. I think I want to break cycles. So I believe in rehabilitative justice, and I believe in taking.
You sound like me when I'm talking about the Israeli-Palestine conflict. So, no, you know what? I feel like you're right. And I feel like I'm being emotional here, and I probably need to. Yeah, I need to do some self-examination. That's why I don't talk a lot about like my opinions with retribution, and I don't like argue for them, because it's just like, when you just have opinions and you just know that they're not based in any kind of like logic or fact, right? It's like totally like an emotional thing. But yeah, let's get into like, I guess, like the sex aspect. So could you kind of, I've noticed, historically sex workers have been called other names, ladies of the night, right? I think most recently in the 20th century they were called like prostitutes, right? Though I know that there's different levels of sex work, like there's different types, and not all of them are technically prostitutes, right? Like in like, I guess, the historical sense. So could you kind of just like explain to those of us who are super ignorant on like the terms and stuff?
So in today's terminology, if someone were to call me a prostitute, I would consider that a slur.
Yeah.
So
it sounds gross. It sounds dirty.
It does. Well, and that's one of the reasons why I explain to people, well, it's a slur. It's because it sounds dirty to you, because there's a lot of emotional baggage that's associated with it, whether you know it or not. You have been inundated with, well, propaganda that's been attached to that term. And so when you hear that, there's a very specific thing that you think about, and it's not empowerment, and it's not cleanliness, and it's not safety. But so typically we use the term full service sex worker now.
Okay, yeah, because I was like, what's the difference between someone who just does like, say, pornographic content or adult content versus someone who's like engaging in sexual acts, like for a job?
So like, I consider myself a service worker. I provide a service, I provide a product, and like, I think especially more when I was a stripper, I considered myself more of a service worker then. I think now I more provide a product now that I just do porn. But yeah, when I was doing full service, because I did do full service for a little bit, and that's something I'll be open about. Yeah, the term would be full service. But so these are very, very, very different experiences. And I think that this is something that people often don't understand when we talk about sex work, that sex work is this umbrella term and that it encompasses a wider range of things. I'm just as much a sex worker today, now that I shoot porn in my apartment, just by myself, then I'm exactly the same, the sex worker today, than I was when I was doing full service and when I was stripping in the club. Like, these are all components of sex work, just different degrees of it. Like, women who post bikini pictures or lewds, even like cosplayers who do lewds and make money off of that, those are sex workers. And I think a lot of people don't really think in those terms. So
you're against kind of like the snobbery of like, some women thinking they're better than other women because they're just a little bit less lewd.
Yeah, the hierarchy. Yeah,
the hierarchy. I like that. I've never heard that term before, but that's good.
We're going to dismantle the hierarchy. That is my goal.
That's very good. I like that. I like that title. So I guess like hopefully I didn't like when I use the p word. I'll call it the p word now.
It's okay.
But yeah. So it's like I'm very grateful that you told me the difference. I have two friends that are sex workers. But they're also like they run like a business. They're like entrepreneurs where they run like this, like it's like a sex spa, right? Where I guess like you come in and you get like spa like things, and you also get like sex stuff associated with that and everything.
Like a spa with a happy ending.
Yeah, kind of like that, right? But it's like more open, I guess. They're more open, and it's more like hipster lefty.
That's really cool.
Yeah, in like the way that they organize it. And they're always talking about like sex workers, and I guess like some of my frustration that came was because like the majority of the sex workers, like historically and currently, right, are not in such kind of like privileged positions where they're like entrepreneurs, like their own bosses and safe situations and like all of that kind of stuff. I mean, most sex workers like are not, like people just making money on OnlyFans in a safe situation, and totally making those choices, right? Like a lot of sex workers are often like bullied into doing what they're doing.
Sure, and I don't want to present this in this sort of like sanitized girl boss way either. And so, I do try when I talk about this to paint a realistic picture of it. And that is something that's really difficult to do because we as sex workers who are voluntary sex workers have such a hard time existing online that it's almost like you don't want to talk about it in a frame of victimhood. You don't want to talk about it in a frame of needing to be saved because we are already fighting so fucking hard just to have spaces where we can do what we do. But on the other hand, like I don't want to also kind of sanitize and glamorize the negative aspects of it, and I don't want to like kind of sweep under the rug the experiences of women and of any people period who are not so privileged as I am, because I am very privileged to be able to do this the way I do it. I certainly wasn't as privileged when I was having to work at the strip club and I was having to, turn tricks and do extras. And there is a big difference. Like, so I like to talk about it in terms of like, to explain to people that there is voluntary sex work, which is what I do now. And there is survival sex work, where it's like, okay, you don't have a pimp, you don't have someone that controls you, you're not sex trafficked, but you're only doing this because you need to get by, or you're doing this because it's your second job, or you're doing this because you've got 2 kids and your husband works 2 jobs and you work a day job and you just don't know what to do and the bills are piling up and you wouldn't necessarily want to do this, but you don't know what else to do. So it's like, yeah, you're a voluntary sex worker, but, So I think there's this whole category of women that fall into this idea of survival sex work. And then there are people who are just straight up trafficked. And I will never consider people who are trafficked to be sex workers because that's not voluntary, that's rape. That's rape, and that's kidnapping, and that's trafficking. And this is a really, really frustrating thing that people like to conflate the two. And they are absolutely not the same. And I don't know a single sex worker who is not an advocate for, liberating human trafficking victims, because those people truly are victims, and that truly is disgusting. And there's never, ever, ever a world in which, anybody should be forced to do this occupation when they don't want to.
So, okay, let me put on my rad femme hat at the time. Sorry, yeah, I'll also put on my angry face because rad femmes are always like really angry. So like a rad femme would say, well, and this is not my perspective, but this is just a rad femme perspective. I'd say, well, no, in reality, all those 2 first categories are in the final category, right? Because number 1, like your quote unquote consent's being manufactured by the patriarchy. You're not really choosing. Like, why would you choose to sell your body in like this kind of way? You're not really, number 1, there's no ethical consumption of capitalism. There's that. And then on top of that, you've been trained since like the moment you were born to satisfy the patriarchy. And when you think of like especially when you think of the stats of what sex workers often have to deal with, right? I think they're like, it's like it's like technically the most dangerous job, in the world and all of that stuff, that there is no like rational reason why someone would make that choice, that they've been manufactured by this like patriarchal society to have that quote unquote choice. And it's really just an illusion. And in reality, they're also just regularly being, I guess, victims of sexual assault as well.
So yeah, this is like a three-parter, but first of all, based Marxist-Leninist, Radfem. I like it. It's good.
Yeah.
If you are going to advocate for the abolition of sex work, but you are pro-capitalism, I hate you. You have not thought through your positions, and fuck off. So if you are a Marxist, communist, anti-sex worker advocate, I don't like your positions, but you're at least being consistent, and I understand where you're coming from. So the thing that I would say to you as far as like manufacturing consent is I receive more vitriolic, nasty, abusive hate for being a sex worker than I do for anything else in my life.
Mm-hmm.
No one ever pressured me to be a sex worker. Everyone always says, keep your daughter off the pole. We are the butt of all jokes.
Mm-hmm.
We are super disrespected. We are not considered even to be, are you familiar with the concept of no humans involved?
No.
So no humans involved was something that the LAPD used to write in the 70s on reports when it came to transients, I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't say that. Unhoused people, some trans people, drug addicts, and prostitutes, because they used to call us prostitutes at the time.
Mm-hmm.
When they were found dead or assaulted or missing, it was, well, no humans involved. So
yeah,
no need
that makes sense.
Not that big of a deal. No one cares. So I think to say that there's this idea that you're pressured into sex work and that is just the patriarchy, I think it doesn't consider the fact that you're not supposed to be a sex worker. Patriarchy doesn't want you to do that. Patriarchy wants you to keep your legs closed and cross your hands and be a good little girl and never fucking show anything. So no matter what you do.
So would you say that by that argument that like marriage, I guess, or like being like a conservative, like that like marriage style, very conservative sex, would like that could actually be technically like more, I don't want to say like rapey because that feels weird, but like less consensual, right? By their definition.
I mean, there are people that consider like that they have specific roles in marriages, that your wife is supposed to give you sex and you're supposed to provide whatever for her. I think that that's a pretty large component of patriarchy. I actually think that radfems, as opposed to choice feminists, are much more patriarchal because no one is immune to propaganda. Of course, no one is immune to propaganda. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that I've been told all my life that I have to be a sex object when all of my life I've received messages that women who are sexual in any way, or women who take control of their own sexuality and put themselves in a position where they get to choose and they get to profit off of and benefit from their sexuality. If you're going to sit here and tell, like, not you, but like if you, this hypothetical person, is going to sit here and tell me that like that's the internalized message that I've always gotten, that I need to do that when really people don't like me doing that, that doesn't really make sense to me. I think that there's a lot of really conflicting roles and conflicting expectations for women. We need to be sexy and sexual for the right person, but not too much. Don't be a tart, but don't be a prude. So I think when you examine this, it doesn't really fall flat. And I think that it doesn't take into consideration the experiences of actual sex workers, because, I mean, people try to get me to stop and go away and stop what I'm doing all the time. I'm constantly in trouble on Twitter anytime I'm sexual in any way. People make a huge fucking deal about it. So yeah, I wouldn't say that the conditioning goes one way, and I think that if you do think that, it's particularly naive. Now, the question of, is there consent under capitalism? Well, that's a tricky one. I would say that most work, if not all work, is coercive under capitalism. Now, is this a question
especially
of...
if you're doing this to just eat, like literally have put food on your table?
Exactly. Now, is this a question of are sexual activities as a form of service inherently bad and evil, or is this a question of, is capitalism inherently coercive? And I think that you can look outside of sex work and you can see, yes, capitalism is inherently coercive. And this kind of goes back to the first thing that ever got me in trouble on a wide scale. And that was, of course, sexual mutual aid, which is the worst fucking thing I ever could have called this. And I would like to explain it and get into it. Can I just use the restroom for 1 second?
No, you're not allowed. I'm kidding.
God.
Yeah, I consent. Okay.
Thank you. Did you just say I consent?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna try not to flash you because my skirt is really short. Whoop! Okay, I think we're TOS.
Sexual mutual aid. I'm excited to find out what this. Hunga, I'm actually going to get into that idea that Jordan Peterson. Yeah, because that's actually when he said that was a radfem point. And I do think like radfem ideas are more interesting than people give them credit. They often get like what's the word? They often get strawmanned, but I still don't buy them. So I can explain like why I think they're interesting ideas. And I'll get into that probably with her. But why I think in the end it's stupid. I am being bombarded by logic right now. Yeah, that's just this. That's what happens in the aristocracy, right? Turf swerves are right wing. The talking points are pretty exchangeable. It depends. I'd say like I don't think like if you're like actually talking like actual radfems, I don't think they're right wing talking points. We are woke enough to handle some flashing, I think. You guys all wanted some flashing, I can tell. I can tell. It's okay. But yeah, for those who are wondering, I'll be doing my face reveal after the interview. And then I'll be getting back into the debate. Yeah, a lot of people that are called TERFs are just transphobes. Yeah, like, that's why when I say TERFs, like, I really want to only use it not to describe just like a female transphobe. Because, like, yeah, that's not really what a TERF is. But I find that, like, any woman that's just, like, a transphobe, they just get called a TERF. I think it should really describe what it means, which is, like, a radical feminism that uses a radical feminist that uses radical feminism as a way to justify their transphobia. And because I think that is particularly unique. And I think that importance is I think that difference is important because I actually think those people, you can change their minds. I think they're more likely, you can change their minds more likely than the other way around. Because I think usually those people, and ContraPoints has talked about this before, usually those people are coming out of trauma. So I don't think it's just like they're just inherently bigoted or something.
Okay.
Hello, welcome back.
Hello. So, okay, this concept, sexual mutual aid.
Yeah, tell me about this.
This was something that I had was actually talking about because this idea of would sex work continue to exist outside of capitalism was like a big conversation that was happening like back in the fall. And one of the things that I was thinking about is this idea that there are actually people who enjoy doing sex work or who enjoy like providing sexual services, I suppose, and would do it without compensation. And this also ties back into, the reason I bring this up is because it ties back into like this radfem talking point that you're bringing up of like, well, it's all coercive, right? Nobody actually wants to do that. And I don't think that this is the case. And based off of people that I've spoken to, I don't think that this is the case either. I think that there are people who enjoy being sexual and being open, and that would still like so let's say tomorrow capitalism was done, right? No more. We live in wonderful, beautiful, amazing communism. I would still want to make porn. Like I would still want to distribute porn because I think that a good sexual aid. Now, I think there are a lot of problems with the professional porn industry, and that's definitely something we can get into as well. But I think.
So what do you mean by sexual aid? Like you're like helping people, like you're teaching people how to have sex properly, or do you mean like you're helping them get off so that like relieves them of like that pressure, like physically?
Yeah, I think that, if you have sexually repressed societies, it's typically not a good place to live. Like a lot of the places that we look at that are a lot of the places.
Yeah, I'm sexually repressed, so I understand.
What's that?
I said I'm sexually repressed, so I understand. But yeah, continue.
Like a lot of authoritarian regimes, or like a lot of I'm sorry, my chat is distracting me so much. Hold on, let me move this out of the way. Yeah, so like a lot of places that are not very pro women's rights are also very sexually repressed. And I don't think that this is good. I don't think it leads to good outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So I would want to continue to make porn because I would still want people to have a sexual release and sexual outlets. I think that this is good. And so, I would consider that a form of mutual aid, right? Like I provide that to my community, and in turn, my community is a nicer place to live. Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Hello, Angel.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. So people don't like you using that term because they find it like offensive? Because it's usually described for something else?
It sounds silly. It sounds really silly, and a lot of people don't understand what communism is, and a lot of people have a very like swerfy radfem mindset, and so it was taken to mean that I want comfort women, or that I want state mandated girlfriends, or I don't know. It was taken to be a very, very weird thing, but I would argue that it actually already exists. And that you can go on to Reddit right now, and you can open Gone Wild, and you can find free pornographic images that people willingly and consensually post of themselves for no monetary benefit whatsoever. And one of the things about Gone Wild specifically, and the reason I choose the subreddit as a really good example, is you cannot post on Gone Wild if you monetize anything sexual of yourself anywhere on the internet, period. If they find out, you're done. You're kicked out. Like, there's no way to advertise.
Oh,
a lot
cool.
of it is very anonymous. So I think that it's a great example of what I'm talking about, in the fact that this literally already exists. So this idea that it's all extremely coercive, I think completely falls apart when you start looking at sexual spaces online.
Yeah, no, that's actually really interesting. The coercive thing, like on one hand, it totally makes sense to me. Especially when I think of like my own experience, like there's so many aspects of femininity I was like feel like I was trained to have that I do think is like oppressive. And for example, like wearing heels, like I'm really small, I'm short, and I've always been told that I've been told by all society that like I need to wear heels in order to be seen as professional, attractive, like all this stuff. But in reality, like heels are actually like very dangerous for like our feet and stuff. So over time, I've realized, and now I wear Uggs more often than I wear heels, to the detriment of appearances. But yeah, that's just like an example where I think radfems like have more of a point. But the problem is with like the whole coercive thing is that, and I think someone mentioned this in my chat, is that if you use that argument to say that like, whenever you're purchasing a service from a sex worker, you're basically committing rape, because that sex worker can't really consent in like our patriarchal capitalist society and all that stuff. You can use that argument to basically nullify all forms of choice, any form of choice. And so you end up in kind of a very chaotic situation where no one's consenting to everything. And then, like, where do we go from there? Like, do we just not leave our boxes? Because you could just argue, I mean, just the fact that, like, I'm putting on clothes when I go outside. You know what? Fuck this. I don't consent to wearing a bra. I don't like wearing a bra, okay? It fucking sucks. I'm gonna be totally honest. But I wear a bra every single time I go outside because it's what society expects me to do, and it's what I have to do to look professional. So, like, I don't know, like, does that mean that I'm, like, this, like, huge, like, victim, like, whenever I walk outside in a bra? It feels like it's kind of muddying the water with, like, actually fully breaking someone's consent stuff. So I just don't feel like it's useful. It's not, like, it's just not pragmatic to me.
I think you erase the autonomy of fully grown women when you say that they don't know what's best for them, or that they're somehow too stupid or too brainwashed to understand their own choices. I find that to be extremely patriarchal and condescending and controlling.
Yeah, and I think if they are brainwashed, like if you're brainwashed into doing what you're doing, then I think I'm brainwashed into doing what I'm doing right now, like talking about history or something. I'm sure there is some, like, because I'm a determinist, right? Like, so I do think that there's some aspects philosophically that we're all like, you know, our society impacted us, and that's why we've made the choices that we've made and all that stuff. But it doesn't just apply to sex work; it applies to everyone. So we might as well just not even talk about it, because yeah, you just get it, it's not even useful. So yeah, it's totally not useful. So like that's the biggest reason that I haven't fully bought into those ideas, even though I do find them interesting. Is there anything like with but I mean, the majority of sex work is not, I guess, the privileged things that we've been talking about, right? Like the majority of sex work, and I'm pretty sure like I have the numbers right on this, but I might be wrong. The majority of sex work is a lot more problematic. So would you like, what's your opinion on, I guess, quote unquote, like problematic, like pornography?
I think that the industry in general is very problematic, like the professional mainstream industry. There seems to be, there seems to be an element of pretty extreme coercion as far as like what you're going to do on set, that I find to be extremely disturbing. I think one of the things that's good about working for myself, and not necessarily like OnlyFans, because you know OnlyFans has its own share of problems, but that just happens to be the platform that I work independently on. I set my own schedule. I decide when I'm working. I decide what I'm going to shoot, and I decide when I'm going to shoot. Now in the professional industry, that's not necessarily the case. You might show up, and you might think that you're going to do a girl-girl scene, but then, you know, you got flown out to California, they scooped you up out of Idaho or wherever, flew you out to California, and you think, oh, I'm just going to do girl-girl. Well, you get there, and they're like, okay, well, actually, this is Jack, and he is going to be shooting the scene with you. And you say...
They're allowed to just do that? Like, isn't that is that kind of fucked up? Like...
It's really fucked up, yeah. You get there, and you're like, oh, you think you're working with Marissa? Well, you're working with Jack today. And you go, oh, no, I said I wanted to do girl-girl. And they go, oh, no, get out of my studio, find your way to the airport, find your way back to Idaho. That sounds like that's going to be really tough for you.
Are there no like contracts and stuff in this industry?
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of like scouting that happens prior to you signing any sort of contracts with like an agent. I mean, there are some companies that are really good about things like that, and then there's a lot of shady stuff that happens in the industry. There's a lot of rape. There's a lot of scenes that you've seen that you're like, wow, that's really hot. Well, it was rape. And like James Dean, it came out that he was a rapist.
Yeah, I remember.
There's been a lot of talk online about things that Marcus Dupree, another huge name, Katrina Jade accused Marcus Dupree of raping, what is her name? Do you remember the girl who killed herself because she was bullied about making homophobic tweets?
Yeah,
her name was, Katrina Jade was a really good friend of hers. Now, Katrina Jade is a huge name in the industry right now. Katrina Jade came out and said, yeah, Marcus Dupree raped her. It was a well-paying, it was like a scene that sold really well, pretty famous scene. Marcus Dupree, big name in the industry. Katrina Jade was like, yeah, you raped her. And everyone just stood around. And all the directors and the sound guy and the guy with the boom mic or whatever, everyone just stood around. And this is not uncommon. You know, there's definitely been girls who were like, yeah, I got on set and he choked me out and I didn't want to be choked out and I didn't like that and I didn't consent to that. Lana Rhoades is also a huge name in porn, and she has a podcast, and
that's the one pornographic actress that I know of. It's Lana Rhoades.
Because there was a clip of this circulating, I think like maybe 2 weeks ago now, where she talks about these like harrowing moments that happened to her on set that she's like ashamed of, and that she will never be able to forget, that will be with her for the rest of her life. And she's like talking to her therapist, and like her therapist doesn't understand. She's talking about like someone pissing in a bowl and making her throw up in it and then forcing her to eat it on screen and thinking that she can't get away or that she has to do it, and just being like,
oh my God,
disgusted and feeling dirty and violated. And the director, and I mean, like, you know, you're like, wow, how could that happen? But think about it. At no point did the director step in. At no point was anyone like, whoa, stop. This is too much. This is not okay. Like, this is like, that's something that you would expect to hear out of a Max Hardcore film. And Max Hardcore is someone who did time in prison and who was considered like an outcast in the industry. You would never think that things like this would be okay. But well, it happened to Lana Rhodes. I mean,
I didn't know that happened to her. I knew she had a bad experience, but wow.
There's so many things like this in the industry. And like Mia Khalifa comes out and speaks against the industry now.
That's why, like, it feels like every ex-sex worker I've talked to, both personally and the ones I've heard about, they all seem to be like, regard their time in sex work as either like coercive or rape or problematic or like, you know, or like sex trafficking. I think, what's her name? Oh my God, she streams now. She used to do a lot of BDSM stuff.
Mia Malkovia?
No, Sasha Grey. Sasha Grey considers what she experienced to be sex trafficking. Like I've heard her say something like that, right? So if so many people like this is it's kind of crazy to have so many people who have like left a job to consider this job this dangerous. Like, isn't there a good argument to say that like, well, because it's so often that this specific industry is so dangerous, like we should just ban it?
Because there's lots of industries that are dangerous. You just don't hear. I mean, do you know what happens to slaughterhouse workers? Do you know how much like therapy and PTSD that those people need? I mean, it's incredible the amount of damage that happens to those people who work in slaughterhouses. People who have to monitor like offensive stuff for social media sites. They have PTSD. They want to kill themselves. They have mental breakdowns. Like cops need pretty extensive therapy. There's all kinds of industries that really, really bad things can happen to people. But we have to find ways to make them safer and to make the working conditions better, right? So there's always going to be people who want to make porn. I have not had anywhere close to that experience, and I make porn in my house. So if you were to shut down the porn industry, you would take away my only source of revenue. So the answer is not, and not just mine, like hundreds and thousands of people. And this is, I think, a necessary service. What I think we need to do is restructure the way we think about workers' rights. And restructure the way that we think about how much do you really need other people? Do you really need an agent sticking their hands in your pocket?
Yeah.
Do you really need a director? Do you really need to go work for a big company that's going to put a clip up on Pornhub calling you a redheaded stepsister slut? I mean, you don't need to be fucking degraded in that way. The thing is, like, my porn that I make, I refuse to degrade myself. And at least what I consider to be degrading. I absolutely refuse to do anything like that.
So you won't do, like, I guess, like BDSM style scenes with where you're like a submissive?
But I like BDSM.
Okay.
But so I'll do that because I like that. But like if someone is like, you know, there's certain ways I don't like to be spoken to. So if I'm filming with someone and they're like, oh yeah, you little bitch, like I'm gonna be like, don't fucking speak to me that way. Like we're gonna pause, we're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna talk about why in the first place they ever felt it was okay to speak to me that way. You know, and so I think, like, I like to lay down boundaries. I like to talk to people about what's comfortable. And so I think that the sex industry would greatly benefit from being a lot more decentralized, and from being a lot more focused on workers' rights, boundaries, and sort of this like defetishizing of violence, and young women as well. That is something that concerns me, is like fetishizing being violent to teens. I really don't like that.
I've heard that, yeah, there's a problem with, like, I watched this documentary called Hot Girls Wanted on Netflix. I feel like you've probably heard of that. But yeah, they seem, I'm sure the documentary has some issues with, but they introduced this problem that I didn't know about, where there's like, I guess, this tendency for porn to obsess over like the new girl who's like fresh 18, and then she slowly goes through this journey of slowly getting like more dirtified, I don't know what the right term is to use, and eventually it culminates in usually doing a kind of black scene with a black guy, and then she's done. And then she's like chucked out, and that's like how like the industry cycles out women, which is like that's not even covering like the racism aspect there, but yeah.
A bit of a lot of these movies and documentaries are kind of, there's elements of scary propaganda pieces to them, but yeah, I definitely think that like the focus on virginity and chastity and being young and innocent, I do think that that's very problematic. I think if that's your thing, that should be considered a kink and not the norm. And I think that it should be like, you know, there should be education and people talking about it, surrounding it, instead of just being like, that's the standard, that's the normal, because it definitely feeds into this sort of Madonna whore complex, which I find to be extremely problematic. And that's something that I try to combat when I talk about like, yes, I can be a sex worker, yes, I can be in a bikini online, but I can also be someone who has boundaries and who needs privacy and who doesn't want to just fuck anyone, someone who has a lot of standards, someone who has a monogamous partner even. Like, these are all things that I think to be true about myself. I think I have very high standards. I don't want you to like try to bother or waste my time. Like, I'm not going to fuck you. I'm sorry, I'm just not. Like, so like people will sometimes reach out to me and be like, how do I shoot a scene with you? And it's like, you don't. You absolutely don't. And you don't get to cross my boundary and ask me about that either. I mean, you do, because I think a lot of people don't know and they just need to be educated. But, you know, I think this idea that women are either these like dirty, used nymphomaniacs, or they're these innocent little 18-year-old babies, like that to me is extremely problematic. And I think that if we had more people making their own content, we would see a lot less of this sort of thing. I think the industry sort of feeds into what people like sort of feeds into the industry, but the industry does have, I think, a pretty big influence on what's considered in. And I think that if we just allowed more people to make their own stuff, we would see a lot of very extreme things would stop happening and we would stop seeing them. And I think that's good, because that indicates to me that that's not actually what people want to do.
Yeah. Do you think that Madonna whore complex has also really affected women themselves, and like, I guess, and what they find sexually attractive? Like, what is it, like the majority of women watch or participate, like not participate, sorry, but or like read like consensual not consent or like rape porn? So, or like have like these, like, I guess, like consensual not consent, like fantasies, rape fantasies, etc. Do you think that connects to it, that they've like kind of been, that women want to see themselves often as, you know, one or the other, or I guess like as the, I guess like as like the virginal innocent one, and this way if they're not consenting, then they like feel, you know, they feel better, okay, about engaging in the sexual act?
You know, I honestly don't know that I want to comment on this too much, because this is something that is not my area of expertise, and I don't want to say something that is uninformed.
That's fair.
I don't know that there's a ton of good studies about this. If there are, I would love for them to be directed my way. Hold on, I'm going to change my audio real quick, because
that's fine.
I'm annoying my stream.
A lot of people in my chat are feeling called out when I mention the consensual not consent thing. Yeah, it's a very controversial topic.
It's pretty popular. Let me see is this messing stuff up on Streamlabs, guys? Can you still hear me? Because I know through Discord it's, I switched to the audio headset and I think it's better, but let's just see.
Yeah, you don't sound as good quality to me, but it still works, so it's not a big deal.
They were telling me that I sounded like a chipmunk.
Really? You sounded great to me. So.
They said through your stream I sounded good. I'm better? Okay, cool. So, yeah, as far as consensual non-consent goes, I imagine that there's probably studies on that. I shudder to think what quality level and what bias they hold.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a part of me thinks that some of that is just natural. You guys can't hear Eris?
Oh, I'm not talking, but
No, I
yeah.
know, but
Oh, they still
they
can hear?
can't. So this was a problem when I was on with Vosh the other day too. As soon as I put in my headset, they couldn't hear Vosh.
That's fine. If you want to take like 5 minutes to fix it, by all means, that's totally chill.
I think they're just gonna go back to having me sound like a chipmunk with a fan in the background because I don't know anything about tech. I'm
sure there's someone who has a kink for that, so it's fine.
About the set? Okay.
Is my whole chat just into con non-con? Like, everyone's feeling so called out right now. I've met a lot of girls who are into that, and it's a very sensitive topic because people don't like talking about it because there's also, for a lot of actual rapists, a lot of the ways that if you hear like the way they justify what they're doing it's a lot of like, well, they secretly wanted it. So no one wants to like talk about it because it feels like you're playing into that narrative. Sorry? Hello?
I hate you, chat. I can't believe you guys made me do this. Okay, let's try one more time. Eris.
Hello?
There we go. Now we're back.
Good?
Okay.
Okay, cool. Cool,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I like this because your mic's much better quality this way, so.
Oh, yeah. I have the Blue Yeti.
Oh,
It is
yeah, that makes
incredible.
sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, way better than the Razer headset.
Yeah, so as far as consensual non-consent goes, I mean, I imagine that like part of that is just normal and natural. Now, is there a question of is the extent to which it appeals to people partly manufactured? I don't know, and that's a really interesting question. And it's something that I would definitely be interested in reading more and looking more into.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say stupid or
okay.
uninformed about it.
I'm going to ask you something personal, and if you are not comfortable answering, that's totally fine, right?
Yeah.
But I've got a lot of chutzpah, as I tell my chat. But do you, like, would you ever do a scene like that? Like a con, non-con scene?
I think if I was really comfortable with the person, yeah. I don't have a problem with it. I think it would depend on the way the scene was framed and if I was comfortable with the person.
So yeah, so in it, like, I guess you would have to really hone down on like the consensual part of consensual non-consent, right?
Yes, I would have to really trust them. And I don't know, like I think it would have to. I like the idea of communicating about like this is what's going to happen. These people know each other. This is a kink. This is not real. I like that. I like the idea of mixing in education with fun. And now I know people are just going to skip past it. But yeah, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to it.
Cool. Okay. I should not have said cool because that sounded so weird. but are there, I guess, like, what other, do you think that, like, there's a lot of, I guess, I'm just going to use the term rape porn because that's like, because a lot of people are not familiar with the term consensual non-consent. But yeah, for the sake of the conversation, that's what I mean when I say rape porn. But there's a lot of rape porn online, and it's very challenging to be able to tell if it's genuine, if it's not genuine, right? Like if it's just if it's just a scene, quote unquote. And I know like a lot of, there's been a movement, at least in porn, like where they'll interview the people right afterwards just to make sure. So like, yeah, they're both really consented. It was just a scene. But yeah, there's like a huge problem with it. And there has been some studies that like, watching this kind of like very hardcore porn actually, instead of just reducing the rate of the person actually engaging in like actual rape in real life, it actually increases the chance that they might like engage in something outside of it, because it kind of like encourages that need. And it's like that whole tolerance thing, you know, you need like a little bit and then you need more, and then eventually it gets boring to watch it and you have to just actually go engage with it. Do you think that there's any truth to that?
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to agree on this. This is actually something I talked to Internax about a little bit. Now, I would need to look at your studies, because the other thing you need to consider is that a ton of studies surrounding sex work are extremely biased and pretty pretty flawed. So it's really important to like take a look at them and be able to analyze data and analyze conclusions properly, and to be able to ask yourself, where is this study coming from? Who is paying for this study? What potential conflicts of interest do they have? And also, you know, we can take a look at things like, do violent movies, do violent video games make people more violent? And that has kind of, that's something that we've pretty much settled on is not true. And we've sort of thrown that idea out the window. And I do think that the same thing applies. I do think the same thing applies to porn, where it's like, you know, I don't know that we can blame the media that you're consuming. I think that there's a lot of other factors we have to look into. You also have to consider the fact that are people who would be willing to engage in violent things, are they seeking out violent porn? Are people who are consuming this...
That's true. It's hard to know, like chicken before the egg. Yeah.
Right. We have to understand that correlation is not causation as well.
That's a good way to put it.
This tends to be a big problem in interpreting data and interpreting studies.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's actually a very good point. I just anecdotally, the majority of the people I've met, who like watch pornography or read erotica or like, I don't know, engage in any kind of like sexual content like that, to get off, the majority of them have something that's very quote unquote problematic that they're into. You know, like everyone has like their dark side of what they're into, whether it's like, I don't know, like age play stuff or like, you know, rape play stuff or BBC stuff or like, yeah, there's always like sex has a way of kind of, yeah, there's a lot of problematic stuff in porn, right? Just in general. So, and it definitely feels like way more common now than it used to be. Like when most people didn't watch as much pornography. So like, do you think that there's been, I guess, an increase in people having like these like kind of kinks, you know, or as conservatives would say, the degeneracy of our society? Like, do you think we've become more degenerate?
No, not at all. I think people are just maybe a little bit more honest now. I also think you have to consider that when you say like people who watch pornography or who read erotica, the amount of people that consume that media who will just lie to you is also something that you have to take into consideration. I think it's probably going to be much more rare that someone doesn't consume porn or erotica than, you know, I think most people do, even if they're not necessarily willing to admit it. So it also depends on what you consider to be problematic. And then in terms of how long has this been going on? I mean, you can look at the Roman Empire and see that they had bathhouses.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, why? People are so upset about the pitch of my stream right now. Okay, whatever. So you can also look at Roman bathhouses and see that they were having like orgies in public. So
yeah.
This is not new at all.
Or like, yeah, the term sadomasochism comes from Le Marquis de Sade, right?
Yep.
Who wrote, he was writing like erotica, like BDSM stuff though. Yeah, some of that definitely didn't seem very consensual.
And he wrote, 120 Days of Sodom, right?
Yeah, there's like a lot of shit like that. I feel like we're just more open and public about a lot of these degenerate aspects of ourselves. But okay, I'll get a little personal for a moment. And I'm like, should I say this on the internet where it's always going to be there? Should I not? But like, okay. So definitely when like a lot of the stuff that I watch is definitely what I would call problematic, right? I would put it in the problematic. I'm not going to say what it is, but it's in the large category of problematic. And so I find that like after, I guess, I orgasm, like there's always this intense feeling of shame that like hits me. And I don't feel like that before. But and this doesn't happen with me during sex. It's only like a masturbation thing. But yeah, there's this intense feeling of shame, like, what did I just watch? Like, I can't believe I just participated in watching this. I can't believe I just gave a view to this. How did I get off to this? Like, I'm so grossed out by myself. And this seems to be like a really, really, like a lot of people are saying it's like called like post-nut clarity or whatever, right? But that implies that, that shame is a clarifying moment, right? That it's justified. So, like, do you think that there's ever a justified feeling for that kind of stuff? Because a lot of women and a lot of dudes like just experience that same thing.
I think that this is maybe more reflective of a cultural problem that we have, where we instill in people that they should be ashamed, because I think that if you're consuming material that is consensually made between adults, and you are not hurting anybody, like you're not hurting a partner, you're not violating rules or boundaries, there's absolutely zero logical reason why you should feel bad about what it is that you like. You like what you like at the end of the day. And this kind of comes back to like your body earlier, right? You have one life, and you don't really have that much time. I think that the most productive and best way to create the most happiness for yourself is to come to terms with who you are as a person and just accept who you are as a person. Now, do you like things that hurt people? Okay, well then that's something that maybe you can take a look at. Do you like are you watching things that you know were not made consensually? Mm-hmm. Okay, well you can change that. You can find amateur content that is made consensually, that's made between, people that love each other. Are you violating a boundary you have in a relationship? Okay, well, talk with your partner, re-examine that. But if you're not doing any of those things, you're not doing anything wrong. And all you're doing is taking time, your precious, precious time that you have, those fleeting moments where you can actually feel really good, and you're putting more sadness and more suffering in your life for no logical reason whatsoever. And probably because you were trained to feel that way by people who aren't you. So I think part of like developing self-esteem and taking your power back is understanding that it's okay to like what you like. There's nothing wrong with you, and it's completely normal. And there's also this idea of aftercare that some people in my chat are mentioning. Aftercare is typically done with another person, but if you're alone and you're feeling these bad things afterwards, maybe you can walk yourself through it, talk yourself through it. Why do I feel this way? Okay, well, did anything actually wrong happen? No. Did I hurt anyone? No. Did I watch something that was... Did I watch something where someone actually got hurt? Probably not. Then don't feel bad. Just try to work on accepting yourself and understanding that you're okay. And it's probably more normal and much more common than you think that you get off to what you get off to.
Well, maybe I should hire you as a therapist. Yeah, like it sounds legit. I definitely need it. I find that, like, I guess that post-shame moment of, like, after you orgasm or whatever, it seems like a lot of people in my chat have experienced that before. And I wonder, like, a lot of times when people feel like that, their anger, for me, my anger gets, like, it gets pushed inward, right? I hate myself for what I did. But a lot of people, their anger it's towards the thing that got them off. So, and I've heard that that's often like what's led to, I don't know, like violence against sex workers and stuff. Have you ever been have you ever found that that's happened to like a client or something that you've had where like, they got off to you and they're ashamed by it and then they directed all that shit towards you?
Yeah, so we actually have a term for that. It's jerking with one hand and pointing with the other.
Oh, okay.
It's actually extremely common. So I have found that not necessarily clients in person, because I tend to have, when I was working at the strip club, I tended to have really, really good relationships with my clients in person. And a lot of the people that came to see me were people that would just talk for a long time. Like those are some of my best paying customers and my regulars.
Yeah.
But there are definitely like some of the people who are the most vitriolic to me and the most hateful to me online are people who at one point would like confess their attraction to me. So this is actually very common. It's something that I've experienced quite a bit of. People who feel resentful that I either won't be with them, or there's definitely people who like I've seen online say that they went to high school with me and they used to have a crush on me, and now they post that I'm this evil, horrible Nazi, and like, yeah, this is extremely common.
Yeah, like I wonder if like that makes it scarier in general to be a sex worker as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Because yeah, you could be such a victim to that kind of violence.
Sure, you have to worry about people taking things way too far. We talk about parasocial relationships online, and we talk about it in terms of streamers and in terms of YouTubers, but having a parasocial relationship with a sex worker is like where the OG parasocial relationships come with.
Yeah.
I think they started talking about it in terms of celebrity, but like, yeah, men, I mean, people get obsessed. They get obsessed, and people don't like rejection. And a lot of people don't like when they can't have something that they want. So this can definitely be a problem, and it definitely makes things scarier. And I think I take my safety really seriously online. I take the harassment that I receive really, really seriously online. And I think, this is something that people kind of make fun of me for, and kind of act like I'm a drama queen about, but I think a lot of the people who do that aren't taking into consideration that, like, I'm not just some girl. I'm not just a streamer. I am a porn actress. I am a sex worker. So, like, the danger to me is so much more real. Or I'm sorry, maybe not so much more real, but like the danger to me has like other layers that it doesn't necessarily have for other streamers or other popular people online. I have to be very conscientious. I can never show my street that I live on. I can never show, I try to like not tag or check in places. Like I try to blur out any personal information ever. And like anyone who is a public figure online should be doing this, but I have been doing this for years, like before anyone ever knew who I was.
Yeah, because you were always aware of, hyper aware of the danger.
Hyper aware of my safety. When I was just advertising on Facebook and Instagram, back when you could still do that, I had to be very careful, because I've definitely had people come up to me in Austin. I live in Austin, I think everyone knows that, but I've definitely had people come up to me and be like, oh, you're so-and-so from online. Oh, I know you. Oh, I like your whatever. Oh, I like your content. And I've had to be like, I'm at the grocery store with my family. You can't fucking approach me. That's so wildly inappropriate. I think a lot of people have problems with boundaries, and especially when it comes to like sexual stuff. You never know what state of mind someone is going to be in when they're approaching you, especially if it's a guy that you don't know. Oh yeah, it's very dangerous.
So like with all of these negative aspects, right? Like, why do you still keep doing it, right?
Because I have some extenuating circumstances. I have some chronic illnesses that I deal with. So it makes it very, very hard for me to work a normal job. And because like I never got to go to college, that wasn't really an option for me. I'm trying to make it an option for me going forward, but I mean,
I'm surprised you haven't, because you seem very educated about like economics and stuff. So
thank you. I have half of a Texas public high school education. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really shouldn't have passed high school. But yeah, I appreciate that. I think that this is something that works for me now. It's not necessarily something I want to continue on with forever. I think that, I am a voluntary sex worker to a degree, but there is also a level of survival in my particular situation as well. And this is not necessarily an industry that I like advocate heavily for that people should get into, but it is an industry that I advocate for that you need to respect the people in. And it's not without its problems. But it's also like, I don't want to be treated like a victim. I don't want to be treated like a child. I don't want to be treated like someone without autonomy. And I know that a lot of other women and a lot of other people who are in this industry feel the same way that I do. We're in this industry for our own personal reasons, right? Yeah. So we don't have to sit here and say, oh, it's wonderful, it's great, it's fantastic. Because a lot of the negatives are other people. By far the greatest threat to me in my industry, it's not STDs, it's not that I'm going to do something that hurts me. It's not that I feel shame. It's other people. And there's nothing I can do about that apart from try to educate, and apart from try to be my own advocate and try to be an advocate for other people in this industry. And so that's why I talk about these things, because we do deserve respect. And because we're not all like drug addicts. We're not all junkies. We're not all, going to steal from you. Like, there's a lot of really, really negative stereotypes. We're not all like lonely single mothers who are too mentally ill to hold down another job. Like, and even if you are, okay, you're still a person that deserves respect, and you're still a valued human being. So the reason why I am such an advocate for the industry, despite all the problems in it, is because I'm not an advocate of the industry. I'm an advocate for workers, because I think that the people deserve power, and the people deserve respect, and we are still human beings, and we are still good, and we are still smart, and we are still kind, and we still matter. So I continue to do this because it's what works for me right now. I would like to transition out of it, but that's not in my cards right now. So right now, I play the hand that I'm dealt.
Yeah. Do you think it's possible then to say that someone can be pro-sex worker but anti-sex work? Or do you think that sounds like infantilizing?
I think that a better critique would be pro-sex worker, anti-capitalism, or anti-capitalism, because I know that there's probably a lot of people in your community that are not lefties who are never going to take up that mantle. That's fine. I think that you could be pro-sex workers' rights. Pro-sex workers and pro-sex workers' rights.
Well, something that someone, like, I remember I was on a debate panel where people are talking about, like, some people are giving, I think, pretty good radical feminist arguments, like, against sex work and stuff. Though, as we mentioned, I do think they get usually defeated. But there was, but I think it was Pastel Dallas, and she mentioned that, like, so, okay, even if we accept that, like, sex work is problematic and you can't really consent to it and stuff, like in capitalism or whatever, what's, like, in their current society, what's the consequence? So, like, you ban it and then those people just starve, right? Like,
well, no, so they won't. Some people will starve, but we're tenacious, we humans. We figure things out, we make things work, and we have a tendency to create black markets for things that we want. So this was another thing that I talked to Internax about quite heavily, was you can look at FOSTA and SESTA right now. Are you familiar with those?
No, what's that?
So FOSTA is the Fight Online Sex Traffickers Act, and SESTA is the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act. They were passed on April 11th of 2018. And right before this happened, the FBI seized and took down Backpage. So these are pieces of legislation that make it to where they amended Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And what that does is it protected websites from being able to be prosecuted for content that was posted by third parties. So if I go on Facebook and specifically towards sex work. So if I go on Facebook and I say, hey, I'm trying to meet up with a client. I want to make $800 today. So I need a client, and I meet up with that client, and the state busts us for prostitution, because prostitution is still the term. But so the state busts us for prostitution. That's a legal term. Well, the state of Texas can then sue Facebook because they've now amended that Section 230 clause in the Communications Decency Act. Whereas before, well, they couldn't get in trouble because they were protected. But now that's gone away. So rather than deal with potential lawsuits, all of social media sites, with the exception of, I think, Twitter, so Facebook and Instagram, because they are owned by Facebook, decided, okay, well, we're just going to purge sex workers from our platforms then, because we don't ever want to have to deal with that. Sex workers don't matter to them. We are not a demographic that's extremely important. We are not a voter bloc that's extremely important. And that's why FOSTA and SESTA were able to pass, despite the several NGOs, sex worker rights organizations, the Department of Defense even going to Congress and going, this is a really bad idea, don't do this. Well, it doesn't matter, because sex workers are not an influential voting bloc. So instead of being like, okay, well, we could get sued. That would be cool. We'll just deal with that. Facebook and Instagram said, get off our platform. Tumblr did away with porn. You probably heard about this. Everyone heard about this. Tumblr did away with porn. And they did that because, well, they don't want a lawsuit. So what we have seen now in the wake of FOSTA and SESTA is a lot, like, and Backpage was also seized by the FBI, which they didn't need FOSTA and SESTA to do that.
Oh no, you froze. Hello? Merrick? She's gone. FOSTA and SESTA got her. It's the CIA? They got her, guys.
Can you not?
Oh, now I can hear you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, now you're good.
Okay. So the point that I was making was, in the wake of this, they took down a lot of websites like that were dedicated specifically to finding full service sex workers. So what has happened is sex workers who used to do online work, who used to be able to meet with clients online, screen them online, create blacklists, communicate with other girls, have communication networks, get paid upfront and online. Because of that being gone now, a lot of women who have to work like the streets now, they have to do offline work.
Yep.
And like we've seen women go back to pimps because it's instead of being able to screen clients and get paid up front, they now need a pimp to ensure that they get their money and that they don't get, murdered. So that is actually sex trafficking. If you are a pimp, you are sex trafficking the women that work underneath you. If you have a pimp, you are being sex trafficked. So we've actually created more sex trafficking with FOSTA and SESTA because black markets make things more difficult and put people in sketchier and more dangerous situations. So the idea of, well, we're just going to do away with the industry. You're not. You're just going to make it more dangerous, and you're going to make the people involved in it sketchier, weirder, and you're going to make the situations sketchier and weirder, and people are going to have less tools and less legal recourse. And so this is something that we've already seen happening.
Yeah, so what would you say, like, keeping that in mind? And I think that this is probably the best final question I could think of, is how do you reform this industry, right? And how do you make sex work safer and better and more ethical?
I think you unionize sex workers.
Really?
I think, absolutely. I think
how would that work?
Oh man.
Yeah, tell me every little detail right now in 2 minutes.
I mean, I'm not an organizer. I don't know how you form unions. I don't know anything about the legality behind that or the logistics. That's not my forte. Yeah. But I think you put power in the hands of workers, essentially. And I think that you decentralize power. This is something that I had said earlier. I will always be an advocate for workers' rights, and I always think that giving more power to the people is going to make their living and working conditions better. I think you also continue to talk to people. Like, I'm going to continue to go on as many streams as I possibly can. I think you write to your Congress people. I think you email your Congress people and you tell them that we're not punching bags and that we're not acceptable targets. I don't know. I think you support sex workers online. So support OnlyFans. Like, people talk shit about OnlyFans, but like, what? You'd rather have a girl working for a director who stands by and says nothing while someone forces her to drink a piss bowl with vomit in it? Like,
so you think OnlyFans has made it a lot more safe?
Yes. I think you support sex workers independently. I think that we try to continue to educate young women and young men about like the dangers of predatory agents and the dangers of working for large companies. But first and foremost, I think that we look at unionization and we put power back in the hands of the people where it belongs. Yeah,
I like the way you put that. Some people in my chat were asking if an Uber for sex work would work. Though, yeah, I can only guess your opinion on that, but you can let me know.
An Uber for sex work? Oh yeah. Gosh, I don't I don't know, because I don't have the highest opinion of Uber. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't know. The Uber doesn't really treat its non-employees very well. So,
I don't know if I like that.
yeah, so that's its own thing. But overall, I actually think you are excellent for like the sex work community. You're so articulate in the way you give your points, and yeah, you must have done a lot of self-education because you come off like very, very knowledgeable. And I felt like I gave you some points that like academics that I've heard in academia, and you responded to them incredibly well, especially with the RadFem stuff. So yeah, so like I think that overall, like especially you speaking here and talking, I think that you are doing a lot for sex workers, and you are an amazing advocate for them. So yeah, so like honestly, thanks so much for doing what you're doing. And do you want to kind of like plug your stuff and just talk about your social media and all that?
Yeah. Okay. So you can find me on twitter.com, the worst website in the entire world that I keep returning to for some reason. And I'm going to be Eldritch Mother on there. And you can find, we're streaming on Twitch, right? Or you're streaming on Twitch?
Yeah.
Okay. So I can't direct you to any of my other stuff, but I do have all my links in my bio where you can find all of my other stuff. I have Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Merrick DeVille, and then I have YouTube, which if you just type in Merrick DeVille, you'll find me on YouTube. I don't stream as often as I should, but I'm trying to get back into it more. I just got affiliate on Twitch, actually.
Oh, congrats.
So thank you. I'm really excited about that. So, yeah, those are the 3 places where I'm most active. I have an Instagram. I have a TikTok. I should start putting like cute stuff on TikTok, but I have an Instagram where I post cute pictures, so that's also Merrick DeVille. You can just find me there on both of those. So those are all of my things. I have shilled all of my things. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Well, yeah, thanks for coming on and doing what you're doing. And I'm just so excited that I got to meet you and stuff. I'm glad that we've been on panels together and stuff because you've taught me like a lot just in this whole conversation. So thanks a lot for that.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, and have a good rest of your day.
You too. See you, Amir.
Bye.